Yes, we are back with more trade talk, as the deadline is a little over a month away at this point in time. Many cup contenders will be attempting to address their needs, while the bottom feeders will be looking to scrounge up picks. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't see a surprising blockbuster trade come about as well. In this video, we'll be circling back to a couple bigger pieces on the block, while also talking about other moves that could be made. And with that, here are 4 NHL players who could be moved this deadline and where they may end up. Now, last video, we spoke about the Pittsburgh Penguins potentially looking into some help for Tristan Jarry. But another need that Hextall could look to address is a top 6 forward. With an injured Jason Zucker paired with a failed experiment in Kasperi Kapanen, the second line for Hextall will likely be the area he's looking to improve. Danton Heinen, who is currently on the left side paired with Evgeny Malkin, and Jeff Carter, has 2 points in his last 5 games with Pittsburgh. Knowing that, according to Pittsburgh Hockey Now, the Blue Jackets had a pair of scouts recently at the Pittsburgh vs. Toronto game, there's a possibility that CBJ is already coveting one or more pieces that Hextall could offer. As for who Pittsburgh could go for, Max Domi has been tied to Pittsburgh in trade rumors countless times before. Elliot Friedman echoed the potential for a deal, and it would make sense at least on Domi's end because of sentiment. Ty Domi, Max's father, has a pretty close relationship with Penguins legend Mario Lemieux. Therefore, on Domi's end at least, it would likely be a win-win. Even though he wouldn't deliver as much grit as the Penguins have been in need of, his creative style of play could complement Evgeny Malkin's especially quite well. Currently, a pending UFA with a cap hit of $5.3 million, Domi would likely only command a second-round pick and maybe a prospect at most if CBJ eats some of his salary. Another player that would make sense from the aspect of sentiment would be James Van Riemsdyk, as Hextall has demonstrated already a pattern of acquiring players that he's familiar with. Jeff Carter and Mark Friedman are a couple of examples of that. Van Riemsdyk, however, would be more expensive and is quite a bit older than Domi. Things for the New York Islanders haven't gone as planned this season. As they began the 2021-2022 campaign on the road for a lengthy stretch, many have argued that their play has been off ever since. Currently on the outside, far from a wildcard spot in the East, many are now speculating that Lou Lamoriello will be open for business and fixing to ship off multiple players. One name that has been getting a lot of attention as of late is Cal Clutterbox. After making his way from Minnesota to Long Island, Clutterbuck has been a staple in the Islanders lineup for almost a decade. A grinder at heart, Clutterbuck is naturally a playoff-style player who's gritty and can also provide scoring and leadership along the way. Clutterbuck is currently leading his team in hits by a mile with 185 so far this season, and has proven to be effective on the penalty kill as well. While there will be likely a slew of teams interested in his services, one that is looking into Clutterbuck reportedly at the moment is the Colorado Avalanche. According to Steven Rosner of NY Hockey Now, Avalanche GM Joe Sakic was in attendance for the Islanders-Canadiens matchup recently, and a league source, Rosner says, indicated that the GM was scouting out Clutterbuck during the contest. Obviously, this is just interest, but the move would make sense for the Avs, as Clutterbuck would not only add in some grit, but also some valuable playoff experience. During the last 2 postseason runs for the Isles, Clutterbuck had 11 points in 40 games played, but considering he was only getting around 13 minutes of ice time per game, in my opinion, it's still pretty decent for a bottom sixer. Taking all of this into account, it's not at all surprising that Clutterbuck has gotten the degree of interest that he has. Other than the Avs, the Flames seem like a team that would complement his playing style quite well. Pittsburgh could use his grit as well, but probably be prioritizing a top 6 player first and foremost. Speaking of the top 6, the Washington Capitals have been playing with a hole in their lineup now for a hot minute. With the injuries of TJ Oshie and Anthony Mantha, the top 2 lines for the Caps haven't been contributing as much offensively. Currently, with 2 defensemen within their top 5 scorers for the club, if Washington is wanting to make a strong push into the postseason, bringing in some reinforcements for the time being at least, is likely on the mind of GM Brian McCullough. A few players that the GM could choose to target are JT Miller, Connor Garland, and Jordan Eberle. JT Miller Fleur will likely be the most expensive on the market if he's not re-signed. Connor Garland would be great for creating space, teeing up one-timers for teammates, and transitional play as well. He's also 5th in the league for drawing penalties, which are insanely hard to come by in the postseason. Obviously, out of the three, the player with the proven track record in the playoffs is Jordan Eberle. With 11 points and 19 games played last postseason for the Islanders, Eberle has proven time and time again that he can perform when it matters most. While he may not be creating as much space as Garland, Eberle has proven to be lethal in up front and is the go-to guy if you're just looking for goals. Vancouver could be looking for a first or second rounder from Washington if they choose to do a deal after all. While I did talk about the potential of Marc-Andre Fleury landing in Oil Country over 2 months ago, since then, you could say that a lot has changed in Edmonton. After the firing of Dave Tippett, the Oilers have went 5-1 under head coach Jay Woodcroft. Woodcroft has instilled more of a two-way game mindset into his players, which has been benefiting them thus far. But after the performance from Mike Smith against the Minnesota Wild, it's hard not to speculate that Ken Holland isn't desperate at this point to address the need. According to senior writer Dan Rosen for NHL.com, he says, quote, Holland might have a better indication of how close or far away the Oilers are after this week, when they play the Lightning on Wednesday, the Florida Panthers on Saturday, and the Carolina Hurricanes on Sunday, 3 of the top 5 teams in the NHL standings, end quote. Meaning that if the Oilers show that they can hold their own against some of the tougher teams in the league, then Holland would be more willing to give away his first-round pick for a top-tier netminder in the end. Elliot Friedman has echoed this concept by saying, quote, Holland has said it this year, he'll move his first-round pick if his team is in it, end quote. Currently holding the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division, if the Oilers can keep up their winning ways, then Holland is going to be on the search for a top-tier netminder. Obviously, the cream of the crop, as the saying goes, this deadline between the pipes, is 3-time Stanley Cup champ, Marc-Andre Fleury. Even though he's on a bottom feeder team this season, his numbers are still impressively decent. With a save percentage of .912 and a goals against average of 2.80, the reigning Vezina recipient would make the most sense from all angles for Holland to pursue. As we all know, the greater the interest for a player, the greater the price. Therefore, I wouldn't be surprised if the Flower did command a first-round pick this time around, which would be convenient for the Hawks considering that they're currently without theirs at this point in time.